Rain.
Good evening and welcome to the, oh, you gotta let Nate in also. He's our attorney. Welcome to the regular scheduled meeting of Ulysses Town Board. It is April 25th, 2023, and I would like to call this meeting to order. And quickly before we do a roll call, I would like to wish my son, who is listening, Micah, a very happy 11th birthday.
Oh,
Thank you. I'm not making anybody sing though. Thank you. Rachel, would you like me to do a roll call?
you do it.
Sure, you got it.
Bouchard,
Present.
Bob,
Present.
Goldman,
Present.
Weatherby, present, Olson.
Present. Okay, we have an agenda that was posted. I would like to propose a few changes. I would like to pull item 6A, local law amending chapter 36 of the town code, to add a new article entitled training and requirements resolution. The reason I'd like to pull that is because I would like to schedule an advice of counsel session with our attorney. I did not want to do it tonight out of respect to having multiple guests present who are presenting or speaking to the board. So I didn't want to do it during the meeting and make all of you wait while we go into another room. So I'd like to suggest pulling that item. I would like to remove as well item B of old business, thereby eliminating old business. In theory, that is the comp plan steering committee update. And well, actually, we can leave that. We're just not going to do an appointment, so we can leave that item. We're just not going to do an appointment. And then pull item 7A, or so I'm sorry, 7B, training requirements for boards and committees for 2023. Because that is connected to item A, and we're going to have, I would recommend an advice of counsel that we can schedule. I would additionally like to add an item of old business related to the, I'm trying to think how, the community COVID relief funding from Tompkins County. I have an update, a wonderful update related to that, that I'd like to make tonight. Does anybody else have any changes or alterations or additions to the agenda as presented and amended? No?
No.
Then will somebody make a motion to approve?
Move to approve as amended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Excellent.
Who was that, sorry?
Me, I second.
Wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that moves us to privilege of the floor. We have two privileges of the floor in our meeting now and at the end of the meeting. Anybody who would like to speak on any subject, we do have a public hearing coming up next. So if you'd like to speak at the public hearing, you're welcome to speak now and at the public hearing. If you're speaking about the public hearing, or you can limit it to the public hearing. You have 3 minutes to present. Is there anybody from the public in person who wishes to say anything?
I would be interested if I could. It's Bob Howard.
Yep, I was yes, just a minute. I was just seeing if there's anybody in person in public first. And if there's nobody, then Professor Howard, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say that I've served on 3 different committees and boards of the town for a total of 15 years of service. I was on the Ag and Farmland Protection Committee. I was on the Zoning Update Steering Committee, and I've been on the Board of Zoning Appeals for the last 10 years. I served as chair of the BZA for 3 years, and I've been the vice chair for the past 3+ years. And I have several comments and a few requests regarding the proposed new town law on training requirements. First, I was quite surprised to have first learned of the proposed new law in tonight's hearing only last Friday, and only because I saw it posted on the town website. In the interest of inclusion and transparency, I feel it would have been far better for the town board to have reached out to those of us who serve on boards and committees to discuss this, or at least to let us know it was under consideration before scheduling the hearing. We had a meeting of the BZA less than a week ago, and this new law was not mentioned to us by the town board liaison to the BZA. Second, from the information posted on state websites, it's clear that there's no state requirement for harassment training for unpaid volunteer appointees on committees and boards of a town in New York. The town board, of course, can go beyond what the state requires, but I question whether imposing more training requirements on BZA members is a good idea. We're already required to have at least 4 hours of training on issues related to the BZA each year. Third, should you decide to proceed with requiring all members of boards and committees in Ulysses to take training in sexual harassment, etc., I request that you honor the training that some of us are required to take for our paid jobs. and not ask us to take redundant training for the town. In my case, I take required training course each year from Cornell, multiple courses actually. Fourth, it is not clear whether the proposed new law would pertain to the state and town mandated training specific for the BZA, or if your new law is intended just for the training on sexual harassment and related issues. I think this needs to be clarified, and if the BZA specific training is meant to be included, the new law should specify the time reporting for this is 30 days after the end of the calendar year for that training, i.e. January 30th of the following year. Fifth, I suggest you had a possible appeal for cases where an extension on the time of taking and reporting for training is necessary for extenuating circumstances. In my case, I'm scheduled for surgery on May 18th, the day of your proposed new training. I'll then be on medical leave for some indeterminate time, followed by professional travel to Europe as my health allows, and then the thesis defense for my daughter as she completes her graduate studies at Penn State. This period of time was already overly full for me, and I'm simply not sure I can take on any further obligation, even if for a relatively short training exercise. This is particularly true since the town board made no effort to provide better advance notice. And six, no matter what you do with my other suggestions, I very strongly urge you to delete the word misconduct from your draft law. That's tough language. In my opinion, to forget to file paperwork on time is not misconduct, nor is misconduct to be unable to comply with short time deadlines imposed by the town. Personally, I find that language too aggressive to apply to those of us who are volunteers. It is offensive. I want to add that I spoke with Steve Morelli, the BZA chair, earlier this afternoon. He says he completely agrees with me on each and every one of these points. He asked if he could co-sign my statement. So consider this as coming from both of us. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anybody else online who wishes to speak, or anybody in person who'd like to speak? Yes, go ahead.
So we, Linda and I, can make a little report to the board if you feel like there's time in the agenda on the water source protection committee work, and, you know, follow up from the goals and vision. So, but if not, we can bring it to the next board meeting. So,
I'm comfortable with hearing them now. Are you? Yeah, please go ahead. Thank you.
do you want to hear it now or during the meeting?
We could add it as an item.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and we have the little goals and vision thing that you, if you want to spend, 5 or 10 minutes on it.
Why don't we do it later in the meeting?
Okay, I think that makes sense. I'm sorry, I thought it was just
like
update.
time, that's fine.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah,
later.
no, we
dropped a couple things.
Right.
Either way, we just thought we'd come and see.
Sure.
And I do have something to say, but I'll say during the public hearing. It
Okay.
relates to that topic.
Sounds good. Is there anybody else in the public who wishes to address us? Okay, then we will move on and open up the public hearing. Is there a motion to open up the public hearing on the local law amending chapter 36 of the town code to add a new article 3 entitled training requirements?
Move to open the public hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second? All those in favor?
May I have a discussion?
What?
Can I discuss something first about this? Usually we have,
Not in a public hearing. In a public hearing, we open for the public.
no, but to get to the public hearing. Before we adopt it,
Well, we're not going to adopt anything. This is just to hear from the public. There's no adoption right now. I actually pulled the item of adoption
but we're having a public hearing right now.
Yeah. because we
Okay.
scheduled it.
Okay, got it.
And so out of respect for the people who might want to
Okay.
speak on it,
Got it.
why don't we,
All right.
we let them speak. Is there
Okay.
anybody who wishes to address the town board on this item?
It was just odd that we took everything else out about the training, but we're still having the public
Well,
hearing.
because we advertised it. And so it'd be a waste of our good taxpayer dollars of advertising it. So to not hear from the public. Also an insult to the people who maybe wanted to. Is there anybody in the public who wishes to address us on this topic? Linda, I saw your hand first.
I would like a better explanation of the, and I didn't bring the draft with me, but the paragraph about penalties and that type of thing, because I found it a little confusing.
Okay.
I understand the impacts of the planning board of the BCA, but what about other volunteers? That was a little, because it seems different than what it is for the others.
So I'm not going to go in too in depth in every question, only just out of respect. I will point out that it's actually for only boards, the elected and appointed officials that this would pertain to. And so part of the reason we're pulling these items is because the town board the town has not actually adopted clear language on what constitutes an appointed official. There are legal definitions of what constitutes an appointed official, and there are processes by which local governments can create additional public officials. And we need clarity in our personnel policy and in town government over what constitutes the difference between an appointed official and somebody else.
So, an
So-
official versus just a committee member.
Right, right.
Okay, so this is only gonna apply. to the
Right.
Official.
And so, and also, I would like to be clear, and our attorney's present who can support or refute me, but it's based on what he said. The town board actually has the right by resolution currently to adopt trainings for boards and committees. We're actually not creating any new additional rights with the creation of the law. The reason we proposed creating the law is from an internal recommendation from the town in terms of the town clerk and myself and our staff, because creating it clearly putting it in town law means it doesn't get forgotten. And I have to tell you, we pass lots of resolutions every year. Sometimes we get forgotten. Clarifying it in town code means it doesn't get lost in the shuffle of the many resolutions that we have. But we actually do have, it is our understanding from our legal counsel, we actually have the right to establish trainings as it is for committees and boards. So the law is meant to create a place where it's clear that that exists. And so it creates a process of greater transparency, but it's not creating any additional rights. So, but I do hear what you're saying about that. So
Okay.
we'll definitely take that under advisement. Was there anything else you'd like to say?
No.
Okay.
That was good.
Roxanne's hand was second and Cynthia's was third in the chain.
Go first.
No, I just waited.
Oh, you're waving love.
Oh. So I have a statement, I'll submit it in writing too, but my name is Roxanne Marino. I'm a longtime resident of the town of Ulysses. I've been involved in town government at some level as either a volunteer or an elected official since moving here in the mid-1980s. I'm currently the chair of the Standing Advisory Committee to the Board, Conservation and Sustainability, and a member of two other special topic committees, the Comprehensive Plan Update and the Water Source Protection Plan. In these roles, I regularly attend webinars and other trainings on topics relevant to the work on these committees. I appreciate and support in principle the intention of the board to encourage and in some cases require training for volunteers serving on town boards and committees so that there is a shared understanding of the sexual harassment, civil rights, and ethics expectations within the town government. However, I want to share the following concerns with the proposed local law and the accompanying resolution specifying training requirements for boards and committees, which I won't speak to now since it's been pulled until it comes to before the board. So regarding the local law, the law should be more specific on which appointed officials of the town it pertains to. This is just in support of what Linda just said. Please include clarification in a law on what boards and committees the law applies to. The town has several advisory committees, including the Conservation and Sustainability Advisory, Water Source Protection, the Bee Committee, the Tree Advisory Committee, the Salem Habitat Committee, and the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee. Since the board appoints members to all of these advisory committees by resolution, does the law pertain to everyone serving on each of them? The accompanying resolution, the specifics, seems to require training for all town committee members. The timeline for completion in the law, local law, 30 days from the applicable deadline with no provision for an extension, is stringent and inflexible. Please consider adding a clause allowing an extension for extenuating circumstances and perhaps a commitment on the part of the town to send a reminder to a committee or board member that they have not yet completed their required training as their deadline approaches. People are busy, they forget, and well-meaning, hardworking volunteers should not be removed from service because of missing such type of deadline. That brings me to the most concerning aspect of the local law as currently written, which others have written in, I know, and spoken about. Use of the term misconduct as a finding and reason for dismissal for failure to complete a training within 30 days of a deadline. Misconduct is a very harsh and strong word. Definitions of misconduct include wrongful or unlawful behavior, malfeasance, a deliberate violation of a law or standard, intentional wrongdoing. I feel this term is totally out of line with respecting our town volunteers and showing value for their service. I strongly urge that this term be changed. Many committee members sharing their time and expertise for the good of the town are also professionals in fields related to their committee work, and branding someone as having committed misconduct, connotating intentional wrongdoing, is potentially damaging to their reputation, both professionally and in the community, especially in these days of rampant social media, and is wholly inappropriate in this context. Wording such as that used in Town Law 271-9 pertaining to planning boards could be more appropriate. For example, failure to comply with the training requirements by the deadline set may be cause for removal from a board or committee for non-compliance with minimum training requirements. Overall, I'm disappointed with this heavy-handed and unilateral approach to this topic for a small town with a big heart full of already very busy volunteers. Please withdraw this law as drafted and consider a more engaging approach that is respectful to the many volunteers giving their time and energy to benefit our community and assist the town board and staff with project initiatives and research. As one idea, town board liaisons to committees could connect with the chairpersons and share a draft in advance of the board moving a local law to public hearing to get feedback from individual committees towards crafting a most amenable and fair set of standards. To my knowledge, as the chair of one town committee and member of two others, no committee or board chairs or members were asked for input on this proposed local law or the policy resolution that relates to it as it was drafted, which I find unfortunate. I'm not personally opposed to the sorts of training being proposed. I get them regularly at my job, which meets New York State requirements. Going forward, I would like to see a kinder, gentler, more respectful approach taken towards establishing appropriate training requirements with easily accessible and clear guidance provided for board and committee appointees that is less likely to discourage or even turn away volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the public who'd like to speak?
No, I will.
Wonderful.
Cynthia Menino. I just want to say I'm happy to be here, and I'm here in support of Laura, our director, library director. So thank you for inviting the library to come and talk about what we do and what we do with for the community. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else from the public, either in person or remotely, that would like to address us? If
Yes,
not- Okay, yes, go ahead. Mr. Hillman.
yes, so, hello, Andy Hillman with the BZA and the Conservation and Sustainability Advisory Committee and the Tree Advisory Council. And I sent a couple emails previously, earlier today to the town clerk, addressed to the town board. And I'm wondering if they could be read into the record regarding this, the local law.
Carissa forwarded what she had. Would you like us to read them or do you want to read them?
I would prefer you to read them. I have a sore throat.
Okay. Is there someone on the town board who'd be interested in reading them? If not, I can do it. You don't have them? Carissa?
Yes,
I got it.
Yeah, Carissa forwarded a bunch of them.
Oh, let's see what's up.
Do we
okay.
have one comment?
Do you want me to read it?
Sure.
Okay. Dear Town Board, the proposed law states that all training shall be provided at no charge to officials. I'd like to know more about what that means. I have some questions. Does no charge mean no cost? Is travel to training reimbursable? Do town employees get paid for time and training? If so, should volunteers? Is mileage part of no charge per diem? Lastly, please consider this. Volunteers don't get paid, not because they are worthless, but because they are priceless. Volunteers have to give, but they don't have time to waste. If equivalent training is done by volunteers, but within a different organization, I believe that should suffice. Thank you. That's the first one. And now I'll read the second one. Dear Caitlin and town board members, as you know, I am a member of the BZA, CSAC, and chair of the TAC, Tree Committee. I have always been pretty good at getting any required training done on time, but not always as great at documentation. The language in the proposed law with which I have the biggest issue is the noncompliance paragraph and specifically the term misconduct. If this law passes as presented, I would not feel comfortable with the possibility of being accused of misconduct for missing a deadline. This would present a huge obstacle for me to continue as a town volunteer. Sincerely, Andy Hillman.
Thank you. Carissa, were there any more?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, I did receive, well, as Caitlin may or may not have mentioned, we received one from Steve Moriali, Rebecca Schneider, and just now from Kate Darfler as well.
Would you mind, have you forwarded them? I know I have
Yeah, they're-
Rebecca's and Stevens. I haven't seen Kate yet.
Okay, yeah.
Kate's yet.
I've got it.
Okay. Sorry, this is what mine is slowly doing.
Oh.
We have not replaced the software yet, or the hardware that is slowing down town. So I've demonstrated our router being super slow. We will include those statements into the record for the meeting.
I'm
Krista,
sorry,
did-
me to read Kate's?
I don't
Sure.
think-
Okay. Ulysses Town Board, I was only informed today that you were looking at adding some training requirements to the appointed officers, which I learned means volunteer committee members too. I wanted to suggest that you add the approved trainings that are required by Cornell and Tompkins County, as many of your volunteer committee members are already taking these trainings through some other organizations, and it is an extra time commitment to attend the few that are town approved. The county uses the free two-part New York State Department of Labor Sexual Harassment Prevention Training videos and the attestation form. She sent the URL for that. Please consider adding these other well-approved training as sufficient for your volunteer committee members. Thank you, Kate Darfler.
Is there anybody else in the public who wishes to speak?
If we read Kate's in one, we should read the others in too.
Sure, yeah, go right ahead. Carissa, would you mind reading the other two in?
Sure. From Rebecca Schneider. I have served as a dedicated member of the planning board of the town of Ulysses for approximately 15 years. I am proud and happy to have provided hundreds of hours of voluntary service along with my fellow board members, giving careful and thoughtful consideration of the different permit applications and issues that come before us. I have happily taken advantage of training opportunities when they can complement my commitments to my full-time job at Cornell. I have also been the provider of numerous trainings on roadside ditches, stormwater management, and wetland protection to other boards and groups across the state and regionally. Therefore, I strongly object to the wording in the proposed rule that accuses our board members of misconduct if someone gets behind in their trainings. I find this insulting and disrespectful of the invaluable role that volunteers serve in our community. It is a disincentive for people to continue serving in these critical voluntary positions. I also am truly disappointed that such a negative authoritarian approach would be used by our leadership instead of working with our boards by discussing the barriers and by providing more readily accessible trainings or other mechanisms. I hope you will change your approach to this issue, Rebecca. And the last one that I received is from Steve Moriali. And Steve says, I echo the sentiments of my fellow board members on the all-volunteer Board of Zoning Appeals, and I'm speaking as the chair and longtime member of the board. I want to point out that our BZA members, who are highly valuable and crucial to our dedication and who provide thorough, sophisticated, and thoughtful input and guidance to our community, are also highly respected and engaged professionals otherwise committed to their lives and full-time jobs. As such, I strongly object to the notion of assigning any label or accusations of misconduct to these people who are invaluable assets for our town. I am not concerned about attending trainings, some of us do several times a year in our university jobs. Rather, I am concerned about how such personally demeaning accusations could also be damaging to our professional reputations. Please reverse your course on any such decision. That's all.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the public who wishes to address it? So just so the public is aware, the proposals, the training that is being proposed is sexual harassment, civil rights and ethics training. And with that, I take a motion to close the public session,
Move to close.
public hearing, I'm sorry. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we are moving on to a presentation. In an era when the news articles are such that books are being banned across the country, I have great pleasure in welcoming Laura as the director of the library and a relatively recent addition to our wonderful community. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and I would love to welcome you to the podium.
Hey, everyone. I'm gonna share my screen.
No, we're gonna move this microphone.
Okay,
Yeah, that's.
can you move that little doodad over?
Oh, yeah.
Thank
Or you can minimize it.
you.
Oh, yeah. I can press that. There's a minus. Yeah, got it, there.
All right, thank you for doing that. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Happy National Library Workers Day. I forgot until after work, so I have to buy my staff treats tomorrow. So I'm so happy to be here this evening to talk about the library. I'm Laura. I've been the library director over at Ulysses Philomathic for about 18 months now. I'm also a mom of 1, soon to be 2 kids in the elementary school, and I'm a homeowner in the town of Ulysses. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the services we offer our community, and then I'm going to get into very deep budgetary specifics because I received some really detailed questions from you call it the budget,
Finance committee.
the finance committee. So
They're sitting right here, so.
excellent. We are going to get to it. Okay, so UPL is an association library. We're chartered to serve residents of the town of Ulysses, which includes the village of Trumansburg, of course. We're a member of the Finger Lakes Library System. This is our mission statement that we have right up here. I won't read it to you. You can read it now, or you can go on our website and take a look at it. As library director, I report to my board of trustees, and together we ensure that we are doing everything we can to meet our mission and maintain our library building and library services to sustainably serve the community for years to come. So I brought a little bit of UPL by the numbers. There we go, a little lag. Here are some stats from the library. We have over 22,000 print materials on our shelves. We also, as members of the Finger Lakes Library System, we get to use the collection. So we all collectively share the over 31,000 electronic materials. So that's ebooks, e-audiobooks, and research databases. We have over 2,000 physical media, mostly DVDs, some audiobooks on CDs, some music CDs, but we don't really collect those anymore. 162 other physical items. We have a guitar kit, ukulele kit. We have early literacy games kids can check out. We have nature backpacks for kids, and we're hoping to expand that this year with more library of things. We're open 43 hours per week. We have almost 3,000 card holders, so anybody can get a card. It's absolutely free to join. And then that second number you see next to card holders, we have last year we had 438 association members. So anyone can become an association member by giving a donation to the library at any amount. So it's sort of like a food co-op where anybody can go in and shop. And then the members of the food co-op are giving their time and money to make sure that the service remains. So that's sort of an analogy that may help if you're not familiar with an association library. So last year we checked out 63,688 materials to the community. That's just 1 year. And we have 8 library staff members. Right now it's 7. I'm currently in the middle of hiring somebody. We have 88 we had 88 volunteers in last year, just from last year, 88 volunteers. Now, some of those are our weekly volunteers. About 30 people volunteer every single week with us behind the circ desk, shelving books, working on other projects, but a lot of people are volunteering at our book sales or volunteering for special projects. But the total was 88, and a lot of those are youth. Last year, we had almost 4,000 computer sessions, so that's at our physical computers that we have in the library. We have 8 computers, and we had almost 50,000 Wi-Fi users last year. A little bit of numbers for you. So here's a typical month of library programming. This is this month. You can see we have 4 early literacy programs, 8 children's programs, 3 for all ages / family, 24 teen and tween programs. So we do an activity every single day after school. We want UPL to be a welcoming place for youth. We want it to be a place where they feel safe to come and hang out. There's a lot of youth in the community who are at school and do not have an after school activity. The library is a safe haven for them, and then they can get picked up by their family, you know, when their caregivers get out of work. So after school is a very busy time for us, especially since the after school program that Ethan used to run, that is no more. So, well, temporarily, hopefully no more. Yes, temporary hiatus. So we have definitely seen an increase in use, which we're super happy about. We got a lot of kids at those programs. We have kids volunteering to help run those programs, and a lot of kids on computers and just hanging out in the space. And then we have adult programming as well. All programs are planned, publicized, implemented, and evaluated by library staff. These are not volunteer run programs. So here's a couple photos. That's Clay in the pink. She's our librarian. She's the one who does the story times and all the after school programming. Our teen zone, we got some new furniture this year. So there's a couple of tweens hanging out. The lower left is from a recent community storytelling program we did, celebrating the end of Women's History Month. This is when there was a lot of energy around Lydia Sears and how much she did for the community in her life. So this was our Remembering Our Lydias program, where people could gather and tell stories about the women in their life. And then on the lower right, we have our birdhouse builds. This is a volunteer-led program. I mean, staff still plan and publicize it, but these are all volunteers who help kids make birdhouses. It's a tradition. They've been doing it for years. We brought it back last year. It was on the same day as the community yard sale. And so we hope to do that again this year. And then that's Barley. He's our reading dog. He's a volunteer. We don't pay him. He's there every week. Kids can read to him. Studies show that reading aloud to a pet really helps kids gain confidence in their reading. So he comes with his person. So our summer reading program is 8 weeks long. It's all of July and August. Last year, we had 161 youth register for the program, so it's totally free. Kids sign up. When they sign up, they get a free book to keep, and then they get these little forms. So those are little forms with a blank square, and then a kid can draw us a picture about what they've been reading, or they can write a little paragraph about what they read, like a mini book report, and then they can turn one of those in each week, and they get another book. Every time they turn one in, they get another book. And then our community reading goal is we track how many of those we get back. And then at the bottom, it says, how many other books did you read this week? And our goal was 500, and we hit 2,476 last summer. So I need to raise the goal this year. We had 45 in-house programs. Across those programs, we had 1,427 attendees at those programs. So summer reading is back. It was super popular that last year. It's coming back again this year. Library outreach is a big part of what we do. A library is not just within the walls of the library, it's out into the community as well. This is Meredith. She's our outreach worker. She's only 19 hours a week, but she manages to do all this. So we have some communities here in the town that cannot come to us. She brings books every week to residents of Juniper Manor and Cayuga Addiction Recovery Services. That's new. We just added that. They're getting more and more residents, and the program is wildly popular. I had to increase the amount that card was allowed to check out because they want their books so much. She brings free youth activities and library info and stories to the Trumansburg Farmers Market every week. So she's gearing up to start next week. And she also provides free books. So the Trumansburg Central School District has a backpack program where kids that qualify bring home a backpack of food every weekend. And once a month, that backpack also has 2 free books from us. She brings the book bike. That's our book bike. It's a little bike with it folds open and has shelves. So you can ride it somewhere. It's heavy, so sometimes you push it and then you park it and open it up. And you can bring all of the library info in the book. So she brings the book bikes to community events. She was just at the Earth Day thing last weekend with the book bike. And then also we bring people in. So we have in our lobby, we have a lot of community resources from organizations all around the county, the town, the village. And we're connecting people with resources for what they need. And we also invite people into tables. So just last year, we had a table about how to become a foster family. We had tabling for free legal aid. And we have Tompkins County, the whole health, they're called Whole Health now, I think, but the health department comes with all of their mental health resources. So we have them quite a bit. Okay. We also do partnerships. So I don't know how many of you know about Trumansburg Harvest. They're a group of local people who started to get together around food insecurity and just providing opportunities to give nutritious food back to the community. So they got a grant from the Park Foundation. They approached me and said, would you host us in your space? And so last year we started offering 2 programs with them, the CSA share. So with their grant money, they bought a couple shares from local farms and we just give that away. And then the Kids Free Farmers Market, which we started last summer with a group of 6, and now we're doing it every month. So the CSA share, we saw a lot of seniors coming to this, and we got a ton of feedback that this really helps them supplement when the cost of groceries went way up last year. This really helped them supplement. One person started freezing and like preserving the things that she got, and she's told us she's still eating the things that she got from last fall. We're hoping to start that up again this June. And then the Kids Free Farmers Markets, we work with the food bank. They provide a ton of free food for us to give away. We also provide activities. Here is Alexis, our youth worker. We have summer youth workers. So she was the youth worker that we got through the town. Thank you. And there she is making butter with kids. If you shake cream in a jar long enough, it turns into butter, and then they put it on bread from Wide Awake Bakery and got to eat it. And that's all free for families. Trumansburg Harvest also at the last market of the year brought a bunch of school supplies that they purchased with their grant, and we're giving those out as well. So it's a really excellent partnership. The library does not make any money off of this partnership. We donate our staff's time because this is we believe in the work that they're doing. They want to support us. It's a really good natural partnership. We just had a Kids Free Farmers Market yesterday and we had over 100 people. So it's definitely needed and welcome in the community. Okay, now we're gonna get into budget and funding. I want to thank your committee for lots of very detailed questions. So I brought lots of details and we're going to get into it. I think just based on some other community conversations around library funding that there's sort of an aura of mystery around our budget and our funding and what we do. And I just really fully believe in leading with transparency. We're not required to open our books up for anyone. We do make a report to the state, which is public information, but I brought a lot of info, so I'm going to get into it. And I hopefully answered all of the questions you sent me in the rest of this presentation. If I didn't, I'm going to provide my email address at the end, and you can email me any follow-ups that you might have after I talk today. Does that sound good? Okay. Let me see where I am in my notes here. Okay, so here is our 2023 anticipated budget. So this is our anticipated funding. It's got a couple of different buckets, and then I'm just going to break down each one of these. So the first one is our anticipated public funding. So the majority comes from the school district property tax levy. If the vote passes this, so there's a little asterisk here because we're asking for a slight increase this year. If the vote passes this May, we'll be getting $127,773. As a resident of the town of Ulysses, my tax-based contribution to the library last year was about $43. So as a Tompkins County Rural Library, we get a little bit of funding from them. This is what we're getting this year, $38,655. Our funding request to you that I wrote last year in your new funding process was $12,500, which was the same as the year before. And according to the 2020 census, the town of Ulysses has 2,218 households, making the average contribution to the library $5.66 through this bucket. Of course, we know this number varies based on your property assessment. You might be over that, you might be under that, but I think it's useful to keep this number in mind when we're talking about this level of support from the town. It's about $5.66 per household. Next is the Village of Trumansburg funding request, which if you watch their board meetings, they've had some discussions about recently. It's been $5,000 per year as far back as I have records. So about 15 years that we haven't asked for more than $5,000. With 816 households in the village, the average contribution works out to $6.13. So if you are concerned, I've heard some concerns about, feeling like you're being triple taxed for the library. Those are the numbers that we're talking about. A couple of cups of coffee. We're so grateful for the support of the Trumansburg Ulysses Youth Commission. We get $4,000 from them. We do not use this to pay staff. This goes directly to our programming budget, which I will get into later on. We get some money from Finger Lakes through state aid, about $1,200. So that's our public funding. The next bucket is our projected fundraising. Our fundraising goal for membership donations, remember I said we have, anybody can come and get a card, but we have our association members that choose to contribute. Our goal is 52,000. Sometimes we meet that goal and sometimes we don't. Our book sales, we hold 2 book sales a year. We have one coming up. It starts tomorrow night. And it's all set up and it looks really great over there. So if you want to come and get some books, you can come this weekend. So we have 2 book sales a year, and sometimes we do a raffle, and our goal for that is 10,000. This is all projected. We don't know if we're going to meet these. And then of course for grants, I'm the grant writer for the organization, and I oftentimes will write grants for programs. And the goal there is around $10,000 to supplement our programming budget. Okay, so the other big bucket is endowment, gifts, and fees. This year, our funding from our endowment will be $131,562. And on the next slide, I'm going to get more into specifics on the endowment. Projected gifts is $5,000. Sometimes gifts come in and they're not tied to a library association membership. So we just count them as an unrestricted gift that we can use for our operating budget. Reimbursements and refunds, oftentimes that's like if we had a really good year in insurance and we didn't have any claims, we'll get a little bit back. So it goes into that line. Sometimes working with Trumansburg Harvest, I'll buy something with library money and then they'll reimburse me out of their grant money if it's activities for a program. So those go in there. It's just sort of a catch-all bucket. And then lost book fees, usually around $500. So you may remember back in 2017, we went fine free. So we don't charge daily overdue fines. You can have something late. You're not going to get that 25 cents per day or 30 cents per day or whatever it is they used to do. I believe, and Cynthia will tell me if I'm wrong, we were one of the first in Finger Lakes library system to do so. Now, especially after the pandemic, most libraries in the nation are going fine free. So I'm really proud that we were a leader, even though I wasn't here then. But we still do charge if you check out a book and you never return it. You do have to still pay for that book if you want to continue using your library card. You could bring it back and then you'll, as late as you want, and you won't get a fee for it. But we do get some fees just because people lose things or, it's irreparable. So we'll charge them for that. And that's usually around 500. Okay, so we're going to get into the endowment. And I'm going to talk a lot about how endowments work in nonprofits. And full disclosure, I do not know if endowments even exist or how they work for town boards, villages. I don't know if you guys have endowments. I don't know how that works. So I'm just going to talk about how it works for nonprofits. So I apologize in advance if I am telling you things that you already know. So
We don't have.
okay, great. But some of you, have any of you been on a board for a nonprofit or a cultural organization? Yeah. So you might know some of this, but I'm just going to still go for the basics because anyone who may be listening this might really help them out too in understanding what this number means. So you may know that most nonprofit cultural organizations have endowments that support the uninterrupted continuation and growth of their services. to maintain the building, and ensure that the institution can live on to serve its community into the future. So this endowment money that you're seeing here, it is under the under the trust of my board of trustees. It is their job to be the stewards of this money and to be the stewards of the library building itself. A healthy endowment for a cultural organization is 3 to 5 times the annual operating budget. The idea is to grow the endowment so that the money it generates can be enough to support your operating budget each year. So this is this size. And then you saw what comes to my operating budget each year was about, this year was about $131,000. So we have an endowment policy that we look at the average of this fund in the light green for the past 36 months. We take that average of the 36 months and then 5% of that can come over to the operating budget to be spent that year. So that's the policy. It's pretty restricted. The exception to that is if we need a capital expenditure, and then my board can vote and approve a capital expenditure. So we were really lucky to receive 2 large donations in the late 2010s, which is why this number is the way it is. It has not been this big for most of the life of the library. We got 2 large donations in the late 2010s. And then in 2020, when COVID hit, the board and the previous director realized that the building's ventilation system was non-functional, and the heating and cooling in that building had always, you're laughing because you were on that board then, the heating and cooling in that building had always, according to stories, been really patchy. So they were able to completely replace the HVAC system without using any taxpayer dollars because they approved it out of this endowment. Also in the pandemic, which I think is really important to mention, with the security of this endowment, all staff were able to be paid, even if they didn't have meaningful work to do from home in that quarantine period. And then staff started coming in and working on collection, and they did the curbside pickup that you all remember. But where I worked before in Hennepin County, that was not the case. People who didn't have meaningful work to do from home were put on unemployment, and it was a pretty bad situation. So I feel really proud, and that's one reason why I wanted to come here when I heard that the board really had the staff's back throughout COVID. Also, for a while there, we were the only library in Tompkins County that was buying any new books because of budget cuts in early COVID. So that's what the endowment can do for you if you have that cushion. Capital projects coming up, you did ask me about that. So include, we're planning to resurface our parking lot. We got to fix our crumbling walkways that we have in the front and the back of the, we're working on that first. We are hoping to install an accessible walkway in between our accessible parking spot and our side yard, that cut through around the library there. We want that to be a safe, accessible pass through. And then we're probably going to have to replace the roof in the next 5 or so years. So that's what we have on deck. I acknowledge that this number may cause people to think, why should we give to the library every year? They have the money. Or why does the library need public funding when they have an endowment? I hope that I have made it clear that this money is for the health and longevity of the library as an institution. If we were to lose our public funding or our annual membership donations, this money would be gone in 3 to 5 years. And then the library would have to make some very big cuts to our staff and our services, which I don't think anybody wants for the community. I recently heard someone say, well, I could see giving money to the library if they were couldn't afford books or something. And I would challenge that person to consider, do they want their community to have a library who's struggling to pay for books and having to beg for money for books, pretty basic level for a library? Or do they want their community to have a library who's able to provide all of these services and enrichment activities that we have here, that we are so lucky to have here? That's my piece on that. Quick about the book endowments. So book endowments is something we've been offering for about 30 years. You can donate a certain amount of money, it's $300, and you can have a book purchased for a loved one, in memorial of somebody, or a group that you're in, one book a year in perpetuity with your name in it. Our librarian, you get to say what kind of subject area you're interested in. Our librarian purchases the book, it gets your name in it forever. So that money right there is super restricted. It can only be used for those book endowments. Okay, that's all on endowments. Quickly, I have a couple more slides. I'm going to go into our projected expenses. So now we're off of our endowments and we're back to our annual budget, right? I showed you the funding and now here's the expenses. So these are the big buckets. We'll go into each one. Personnel costs. So you wanted to know about how many staff we have and their benefits. So this is what we spend on salaries and wages. We have 5.43 full-time equivalent staff. So we have 8 staff, currently 7, soon to be 8, hopefully. But 3 people are full-time and then the other 5 are part-time. So it's 5.43 full-time equivalent. And we are very proud that we exceed the requirements for a living wage in Tompkins County, which is $16.61 per hour. All employees receive paid vacation, personal, and sick time. Personnel costs in this bucket also include payroll taxes, and then we have required workers' compensation and short-term disability insurance. We do not receive health insurance as employees of UPL. Contingency wages is my sub budget. Basically, if somebody is sick or 2 people are sick, I can schedule other people and not worry about how I'm going to pay them. We do have a simple IRA staff can opt into, and we match at up to 3% of the employee's contributions. And then finally, we have some professional development costs. We have training requirements for our board members. So we have money in there to support them. And we also have money to support our staff in their learning. Okay, so it costs about $52,000 a year to run the library. Just to keep the building open, not even having any staff in it. So we have contracts for cleaning, plowing, and some light gardening. A lot of the maintenance costs, mowing, repairs, painting are done by a staff member. I do have a facility staff member, he's part-time. We have a USDA mortgage. You wanted to know about that, and our debt, our mortgages are only debt. We had a 30-year mortgage that started in 2001. Which means we have, after this year, we'll have 8 years left on that mortgage. The annual payment is $12,642. We also have high utility costs. This is just an estimate. Obviously, it's a projected budget. We saw a huge increase, like probably a lot of you did, from NYSEG last year. We do have solar panels, but it does not generate enough to pay for all of our power use. We are now all electric. We no longer use fossil fuels, so we're all electric, and we do through NYSEG use an opt-in to a clean energy. And we have a little budget here to pay for repairs and replacements, and as well as some legal fees if we need it. And we have our accountant that does our taxes every year. We also do a self-audit every couple years. Library collections every year.
Sorry.
So how come you chosen not to provide some health insurance?
Oh, that's a great question. It's too expensive. What it comes down to is it's too expensive.
Even just for 3 full-time employees?
Last time we looked into it, but we're going to look into it again this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know a lot about the research that was done because I wasn't here for it. But I'm sure if you were to email the board, they would be happy to talk more about that.
I think you could find a way out of the budget to provide.
Yeah, the problem is, you know, if it's that's an annual cost, right?
Yeah.
So that could wear down that endowment real quick.
Pretty extreme for a small policy.
What's that?
It's pretty extreme for a small policy,
What's pretty extreme?
the cost.
Oh, for health
Very high.
insurance? Yeah, it's very high. Yeah. Yeah, even for 3 people.
It's too bad the Library Association can't find a way to do it, to be in a collective bargaining
Mhm.
group.
Yeah, so we're an association library. There's other types of libraries, some municipal libraries like TCPL. They're part of some of those state, you know, consortiums, but we're not because we're an association library.
Springfield and Rochester, They actually have the town provides it as a community service for all of the small businesses. And it
Wow.
costs us probably half of the cost that normally would have been. And it benefited the town quite considerably.
The
because-
bigger the pool,
That's right.
the cheaper the cost can be.
Yeah, so when I was looking into it for the library, I did Paul Gordon when he was a trustee. And to try and get into the municipal healthcare consortium. Spoke with the head of the Tompkins Chamber, it was Gene McPeters at the time. You know, worked with all kinds of things, talked with looked at Healthy New York for small business, Tompkins. Worked with Anna Kellis to change the law with Finger Lakes Library System on the board there too. So that association libraries can be part of the healthcare consortium that they are part of by into New York State, but it would come with civil service, but no money. It would be a mandate with no money behind it. We still wouldn't get any money.
New York loves those.
Mhm.
We should talk more. Let's talk, we'll pick that
Yeah.
up, but let's have a conversation.
Yeah, and I know they've worked with previous directors on trying to make a, maybe just for the director, but previous directors had said, no, I'm not okay with that. I don't want to be the only one on staff who gets that benefit, and I would agree with that, so. Yeah, but we are gonna revisit it. We're gonna work on it.
When we first looked at it, we had somebody from HR person from Cornell, who was helping us. And 2012, and we all hoped that the ACA would look different.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Shall I power on? Okay. So here's our annual collection budget, books, e-content. That's what we give to Finger Lakes Library System for that shared bucket of ebooks and e-audiobooks, periodicals and DVDs. This includes the book endowments. And then tech and supplies, we have circulation software. So we give this money to Finger Lakes Library System for the privilege of using a shared circulation software within all 5 counties. That way, somebody from Auburn can walk into our library and check out a book. I will have their card in my system. We all pay in for this circulation software, but it's expensive. We have computers both for public use and staff use. Those get replaced. We have a computer replacement plan, so they get replaced regularly. They get a lot of use. We have our licensing fees and office supplies, of course, paper, toner, bookbinding tape, all the things you need. And costs have definitely gone up with inflation. So this budget, this 5,800 is more than it was last year. This is our programming. So these are all the different buckets of programming. The top 2, teen and summer reading program, are dependent on grants. So we get 2 grants from the Rosen Fund, and that's through the Community Foundation of Tompkins County. And that the teen one, it has been our D&D club, which employs a Dungeons and Dragons. If you're not familiar, it applies a dungeon master, and also a teen gets paid. We have a teen worker who gets paid to support that club. And then summer reading program, we use money from the Trumansburg Ulysses Youth Commission. Then we use some grant money on top of that. Volunteer recognition, early literacy, children, adults, all of those different programs. And again, this is just for supplies and contract work. Like if I bring in a puppet show, this is not to pay any library staff who plan, implement, publicize, and evaluate these programs. And then there's the outreach supplies for Meredith's work, and then the money that pays for the backpacks that I meant, the backpack books that I mentioned earlier. Fundraising costs, we don't use any public money to raise funds. Most of our fundraising is, we still do 3 print newsletters a year. So a lot of this is printing and postage. And we need a little bit of supply money to run our book sales, but that is 100% volunteer run. Staff do not work the book sale. We keep it pretty separate, that fundraising is the job of the board and volunteers that want to support that work. And staff are not fundraising, except for me writing grants. That's the exception. And then the candlelight dinner, it has a small budget for that. And this will be the first year that we will be back to the candlelight dinner. For the first couple of COVID years, it was Zoom. Last year, we did a very small last minute gathering in the library itself. And this year we're doing the full candlelight dinner again. That'll be in November. So that will be super fun. Okay, thank you. That was a lot of me talking. I hope that I answered all of your budgetary questions. I'm happy to answer more now. Or there's my email if you would like to email me. If I don't have the answer now, I can find out and get back to you. And you can enjoy this picture of our 21st birthday party last fall.
Wonderful. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody on the board have a question? Any questions?
Okay, great.
They brought you other questions in advance, which I thought made studying for this exam. Less painful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, that brings us to, oh. I don't think anybody wants to hear me more clearly, but we'll put it over by Rich. That brings us to just a quick update. The comp plan steering committee had its first meeting last Monday. Liz was selected as the vice chair. And so thank you very much for your service. We will be meeting on the second Wednesday of every month at 6 o'clock down here. But that's only for the next couple of months as we actually figure out a schedule that works for everybody, because it looks like we have a business rep putting in their application potentially. Well, not potentially putting an application, we'll be putting in an application, who is not available on the second Wednesdays of the month. You'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But most likely we should have some additional, I think 2 people that we will be bringing to you at the May meeting for appointment. At the next meeting, we're going to be looking at, particularly, we're going to be looking at our engagement, our community engagement plan. What's it called? Public engagement. Was there anything else, Liz, that you wanted to, as vice chair, who'd like
No,
to formally?
I think it's a good group of folks with representative backgrounds that we look forward to. I think it'll be a good group put together and make sure the public knows that you're more than welcome to come to the meetings.
Yeah.
And listen in and provide feedback at some points. So I think this is all for engagements with the public. We're not doing this on our own, for us silo or anything. So please come out.
And as we move forward, we're working on a contract process with the state. It's still ongoing on that side. We don't have a final contract, so when that's ready, we'll bring it to the board. State just takes a long time doing this. And then after that, we can go forward with an RFP, request for proposals for a consultant to actually do a lot of the heavy lifting. So I think we're on a really good track, and I'm personally really excited, and the public is always welcome to join us in person here at Town Hall, or by Zoom live during the meeting, or watch the recordings after the fact. So there are many ways to participate in those meetings, and then the public will obviously be invited in a variety of means and methods to participate in surveys and public information sessions and small group discussions and all sorts of things over the next year and a half or so. Then we are, any questions about that? Sorry, before I hop on to new business. Then moving on, actually, I added an item of old business, which is I was the very happy recipient of a phone call today from our county legislator, Ann Corman. I am quietly, because it's not yet official, I'm quietly, but loud enough for the public to hear, because she called me before the town board meeting to let us know that our application for the community COVID relief funds that we put in for our summer camp program has been allocated $15,000. And we are on the list that the committee has put together via email, which they will formally vote on May 1st. And if we clear that, which she thinks we will clear that, otherwise she wouldn't be telling me this. It's obviously not yet a done deal. It then goes to the full county legislature on May 2nd. And these funds will be able to, in addition to providing services that allow youth to get auxiliary programming support, allows the town to provide auxiliary programming support to our summer camp youth. A sizable percentage, possibly more than 50% of our youth will actually be able to some degree receive subsidized summer camp enrollment this year, thanks to this. Because what we applied for included helping subsidize summer camp enrollment for families up to 300% above the poverty line, which is the direction Tompkins County has been moving in for services. And so that's going to have, we hope, a sizable impact on families who certainly, many families who struggle for childcare during the school break. We are literally the only affordable game in town. The regular rate is $150 per student per week. This is going to really help offset expenditures for families who count on this care. So I'm very happy to be able to softly tell you this and hopefully loudly tell you it in 2 weeks. But that's some news there. And so that brings us on to new business.
You want them to report on Roxanne, I want to do that.
We can, if the board's amenable, we can do that then. I think if you're wanting us to approve something, we're gonna need to see it. So for the next meeting,
Well, I have this, I mean, I don't know if I want to put it or not, but I have it.
Okay.
Discussion.
sure.
We just thought we'd bring it and get it out, but then with other things deleted from the agenda, we thought maybe you'd have time to think about it. And maybe it doesn't require that much thinking, and you could consider approving it, because it's already been worked through quite a lot.
Thank you.
Rachel, do you want this? I can email it to you. Sure. I will do them. So go ahead, go for it. Okay, so just to, Linda's having her mask, meanwhile, so I'll stand for us and she can chip in. So just to refresh your memory, the town signed on, to work on a program with and for the people who are here in the public, with the New York Rural Water Association to, they have a program where they, a federally funded program to assist municipalities in coming up with drinking water source protection plans. Their program provides free technical assistance. To develop one of these plans, you get to work with a technical support person, which we had one and then they retired, and we now have another one on board who's up to speed and really familiar with our group, and she's great. Part of the requirement for doing that, the town board passed a resolution, and as part of that, they needed to form a planning stakeholder team, which is our committee, the Water Source Protection Plan Committee. And we work with the technical specialist and try to pull all of the components together with periodic reporting to the board. Was the way that we have been working so far. New York State also has a drinking water source protection program initiative, which is called DWSP2, that you would see online. That is similar but separate from the NWRA funded program, but you can do a drinking water source protection plan that follows the DWSP2 framework. And that is what our technical specialist recommended that we do, because then it helps the town to get funding for other things that we might want it if you comply with the New York State DWSP2 criteria. So we decided, our committee decided that and we brought this to the board before. I think I gave a written report in February for our committee. We decided to follow that. There are 4 phases to that program, to the stepwise phases in that, following that framework. And the first one is to formulate a goal, visions and a goal for the plan for the town. And so we worked on that a little bit back in December with our old support person, and then into the new year. And then we ran it by, brought it to the town planner and got some input from him and others in the town. And then we got our new technical helper, and so this got slowed down a bit, but the committee's been working through it and taking those things into account, and we also did some research on other, plans in that municipalities in Tompkins County have done drinking water protection plans and what sorts of goals and visions they used, and, you know, it's recommended that you have 6 or 7 goals, and, so the committee's worked on this a fair amount, and that, what you have in front of you there is our proposed final goals and vision, and, so obviously the board would approve that, and then phase 1 would be finished, and we're working on the website, and has put some basic material up, to help the person, and we worked on it at our last meeting. We're gonna tweak that some and add some things, and so that would be a great thing to be able to put on the website, the goals and vision, you know, it's pretty simple and right there on the page. So that's what we have, and, if you have anything to add to this,
So if you want to take, give us a look at it and have any questions on it. You can make some feedback on, you know, what your thinking is on it. Are we on track? Basic question. Is what the board.
It seems to me.
Yeah. Did you have a chance to talk to Niels about this at all with your revised draft?
Yes.
Okay.
And very good.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, with this draft.
With this draft? No.
Oh, okay,
We're just gonna go out to him and Michelle.
okay.
but I don't, I mean,
Tomorrow.
I guess
Yeah.
we, you know, we kind of need to be moving forward with this, so. I don't know how iterative a process this has to be every time. It seems like
Yeah,
a
I
pretty
think
simple thing.
Yeah, I think
Has
we
some great goals and.
could- Yeah.
Well-
We always add to them.
I mean, I personally, I mean, if you haven't, I don't think it makes sense to ask staff for their feedback tomorrow on a draft that we would be adopting tonight.
Oh.
If that's
no,
what
we're
the,
Coming back to the.
Oh,
the
this-
adoption, yeah.
oh, okay, so this is just
we-
sharing, okay,
Yeah,
no, that's great.
I thought you said we could vote on.
Well, you could if you want to, but,
yeah, if you're not
and-
comfortable with it, don't.
well, and what we were, you know, told at that meeting was, you know, it's your committee, here's the input, take it, we hope, and do what you think is right with it, and then bring it to the board, so that is what we did, we
Well-
did take it into account, we talked with the technical specialist, we looked at a lot of other plans, and so that's what the committee
You're thinking you. want
charged
the
with
others to-
doing
Yes,
this
these are paper.
has proposed.
Well, I'm not trying to slow you down with any consideration, but I don't think it's a bad idea for us to make sure that we're working in partnership and with the input of the staff that you just mentioned. I mean, I don't have any conceptual problems with this, but I don't see everything that they see. And so I would like to involve them in that process. Because it's not an independent group, it's in conjunction with the town, and we're all genuinely wanting to move forward together to make sure that we're doing our best. I have no problem bringing this at our next board meeting for approval. But I'm one vote, so if you want to move, if someone wants to make a motion and move it tonight, that's
But you-
certainly the
just a
prerogative to
question.
afford.
You've already discussed this with Niels and incorporated his
Is,
thoughts
you know,
and comments.
Right.
Right, we took his comments into account and we discussed them we took all of them, he sent an email, we sent it to the whole committee.
Yeah.
The committee went over it all, talked about all the different aspects of it.
So I'm fine moving.
Yeah, I would move to.
I have one question. And I think it's just on the last bullet. And it could be my lack of understanding of the committee. Are you actually gonna be adopting strategies or developing strategies and it's like providing those out to the public?
Well, so, yeah, I think so. There's 4 phases to it, and in the 4th one, which I guess I don't have that here, it's as a part of the plan, it would be kind of like a comp plan or something. You'd have the recommendations.
Okay.
And so it would be in recommendations. I mean, the town board would adopt this plan and then, you know, coming out of that, like a comp plan, or an ag plan, you would
There'd be
choose the
action.
actions and do them.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
so that's what people thought was important to put forward as a goal. May not happen, but
That was just
Okay.
My question. Otherwise, I think. Good goals that are achievable and you can, I like having goals where you actually can like, meet them, and, like measure against. And I think you can do
Yeah,
that
so
for all of these.
that was exactly the thinking, yeah.
So,
So we have a second.
do we have a second?
Yeah, I second. You move second, yeah.
Paul, is there any further discussion? I'm gonna be voting no because I think it should go back to staff. I would like to see staff review. And I also think that this frankly should have been put forward in the public sector. It wasn't on the agenda and the materials weren't shared in advance. So it's not because I'm not supportive of what you're doing. It's just for public transparency. This to me feels unnecessarily rushed. But I will call for a vote if there's no further discussion. All those in favor?
Well, wait,
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't think there was.
going too fast.
I'm sorry. I'd like to. Yep, go ahead.
So I want to honor your wishes as well, so I don't want to steamroll them. You know, you have a feeling you really want it, so how would you like this to go to get, so we can do this at the next meeting?
Well, I mean, I was gonna take Linda's recommendation that it was going to Niels and Michelle, who that was the group, the three of us met with Linda and Roxanne 5-6 weeks ago. And maybe it wasn't that long ago. Michelle Niels and I met with them about 5-6 weeks ago on the previous draft. I think that this is really important. So I think it's because I value it that I want to make sure it's right, because it should be working in conjunction with everything else we're doing. And so it might be Niels and Michelle look over this and they're like, yep, immediately, this is great. This is fantastic. Let's go. Not because I think that not because I don't value the committee. I actually value the committee. If I didn't value the committee, I wouldn't care what they were producing.
See what table it for the next meeting.
Well, it doesn't even need to be tabled because we don't have a resolution for it. I mean, you can withdraw or we haven't voted on it. I'm happy to bring it to the next board meeting. I can put it on the agenda.
Public review by any.
Well, I mean, we like to try to get stuff on the agenda or posted publicly, whether or not anybody looks at it.
That's fine, I withdraw myself.
Pardon?
I withdraw my second.
So can we get that review done?
No, yeah, I bet this
And
review can be probably done this week.
Prepare a resolution so that on.
I have a
May 9th
draft resolution already. All I have to do is copy and paste and bring it to
so
the
that
next
on May
meeting.
9th, it could be
Yes,
up in the front and be officially approved.
absolutely.
And you're clear to go?
Yeah, and we'll have another.
Yeah.
And so related to that, we've also been working on the survey, which we told the board has thought for a long time, and in the previous board. Was an important thing to do as a follow-up to the 2009 water study survey that was done in the town. And it's part of the phase 2, gathering of information. And so we've been working on that a lot and back and forth at meetings and we put a lot of time into it. And so we now have a final draft of that we are going to send to the town staff and then we'd also like to present it to the board at the next meeting. So if we have a little time on the board for that, and we can give you that in advance, obviously. And we really would like to try get this out before it's summer and people aren't around. So
It sounds like we could do.
so there is a way that we can, streamline many iterations of input to the way that we best can collect input and then respond to it. That would be helpful to know also, because otherwise, if we just, and we only have a technical specialist help for a finite amount of time to complete this whole thing, so. Yeah, so we'd like to be also on the agenda, and we can send that, we have that all pulled together now, so we can send that to the town board and the staff tomorrow, right? Yeah.
How long do you have the specialist?
Well, I mean, there's not a set timeline right now, but it's, it's not forever. She has a lot of other, they take them on in clubs, and so that they can finish up with some and move on to others. And I'm trying to think how long the Enfield one was. I think it was like, I don't know, it's probably 16 months or something.
So we're gonna put this all and take care of it at the next meeting.
The survey and.
Survey and goals.
Right.
So I think what we, to expedite the process, I think that if you could provide, you said, I remember when we met, that you guys were gonna provide, I'm sorry, your committee was gonna provide the survey questions. Nielsen's gonna get a chance to look at it. I think what might make sense is when you provide it to all of us, Niels can provide his feedback to the entire board at the same time. And so that way, that will mean that when we come
Okay,
looking at the survey, the board's aware of that feedback at that phase and can move forward.
okay. All right, sounds good.
Great.
For this record, was the motion withdrawn?
Yeah.
Does it matter by whom?
Yes.
It was Rich.
Well, Mary made the motion. I
He just
think.
withdrew the
I withdrew
second.
the second,
Yeah.
so
So
There's no-
it's. drives no-
Mary-
away.
Mary shouldn't be held out there by making a motion that. has
Slap it in the
no-
breeze.
Has no support.
It's the wrong impression.
So we do have a website. So people like, and as soon as we.
Well, don't look quite yet, because we got
Corrected
some
some
things that are inaccurate.
Wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
Depending on Chris's webpage, yeah.
What is it?
Awesome, thank you. So it is, I'm gonna actually have Michelle do this introduction, but it gives me a lot of pleasure to come to the item number 7 of business, which is our facility manager's procurement and authorization to sign a contract. But before we pursue that resolution, I'd like Michelle to take an opportunity to introduce another Ulysses resident who I'm very excited to be involved in the town. So Michelle, would you mind?
Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Michael, and Michael, right before the meeting, I was like, wait, how do you say your last name? How do you pronounce it?
Default.
Defoe, okay. Yeah.
Got the phone.
Michael, Defoe.
Yeah.
Back in the 2023 budgeting season, when we were developing this concept of hiring a contracted facilities manager to help get over the hump of the deferred maintenance that the town hall facilities has been on. We didn't envision somebody as qualified and with the level of professional expertise that we have here with Michael, so I'm very excited to get started working with him. And so far, it's been a delight and comes with a variety of plethora of wonderful accolades from his previous professional experiences, so.
Make the flush.
All right,
Michael,
welcome.
excited to work with you.
So I have one physical copy, but the town board was provided with the contract before it runs through December 31st of this year. So does anybody want to look at the physical copy while we're doing it? You can pass it around. I do have a resolution. Sorry, I'm sorry, Rich, I wasn't trying to steal it from you. So I'm gonna go to while you're doing that, I'm gonna move the resolution because I need to tweak it slightly. This is where it's fun, Rachel, I apologize. I'm gonna stand up while I say this because I'm gonna show you the word I'm gonna tweak. I'm going to tweak this management. So I'm gonna move the resolution, whereas the town of Ulysses issued a request for proposals for facilities consulting services. Resolved that the Ulysses Town Board approves the town supervisor to sign a contract pending attorney approval with Michael Defoe to provide facilities consulting, not management, services to the town of Ulysses.
Facilities consulting?
Yes, he's a consultant, so he's not managing in the same way. It's all, and the reason we're using this term is for legal reasons.
So how would this work? Michael would identify areas of need and then put it out to bid to a contractor?
I mean, in broad strokes, he would come to us with his recommendations for what needs to be done, and then that process.
Who
So
would supervise that? Michael was-
he would supervise the people who are actually doing the work. Because it turns out Michelle and I are not the most qualified individuals to do that kind of management. So, but he would not be doing the work himself, and the town board would have all the control over the actual people who are hired and all that process. So I moved it. Is there a second? If there's any more further discussion, we can have it. Is there any discussion?
So, so would he would not engage the subcontractors or?
So he would be heading up the process to help us look for the contractors, recommending the selection of the contractors to the town board and overseeing the contractors when they're actually performing the work, making sure the work is being done
Oh.
properly.
But from, he can't do the supervision from 8 AM to 4 PM. So you'd have to meet with the contractor at some other time.
Oh, they start at 7.
Yeah,
Right, and I mean, he's not gonna be sitting here babysitting them either. I
Right.
mean, but it's a situation where it doesn't mean that he's actively sitting in the corner watching. I'm not pretty sure that's not what a general contractor does. He would effectively serve as our general contractor.
right.
Larger, more complex projects. I do have flexibility with that.
Okay.
I do need to have those clauses in there to protect myself.
Sure.
You know, one of them is your security system. I mean, that would be fairly not, might be complex to most people, but it's very hands-on, so it would be more flexible with contractors are gonna have questions. So I have arrangements with my current employer to be able to answer certain phone calls like that. I'm young, so I text, so there are ways that I can handle situations.
I'm old and I text. Tell my wife.
We look at this position as an advocate for the town to ensure that we have professional expertise to maintain quality control over the facilities work that needs to be done here.
Especially because a lot of the facilities work is becoming more high tech and making
Right.
sure there's actually like the final product is frankly workable for the staff.
Right.
It's not always the case.
Right.
So we're trying to move in that
Okay, what
direction.
do we need here?
I have a motion and a second. If does
Okay.
anybody have any other questions? It'll be the budget, it's projected to come with under budget for what we budgeted this year, so.
Okay.
Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, and thank you so much for being here tonight.
Yeah.
And I bet you learned a lot more about the budget of your local public library than you ever thought you would at a town board meeting. So we appreciate you being here for that. Next up is, we have some just kind of weird things tonight and that we don't normally do. I don't mean weird in a bad way, but weird in a different, new and interesting way. And the next up is, I have a physical copy of that. We have an infrastructure agreement for 1009 Honeybee Lane. If any of you are familiar with Honeybee Lane is an interesting shape. It is a town road and it goes up and then it makes a loop because it's a roundabout, and people drive back down. And on that roundabout, it's not a cul-de-sac because there's filling in the middle. A cul-de-sac, in my California experience, is completely paved. This is not completely paved. So maybe it's not a roundabout. Well, it's a roundabout that only has one spoke. Anyway, I digress. At the top of this type of roadway, there is a property, a new house that's being developed up here. And in order to provide them with water and electricity, they're going to need to go underneath our roadway. And so we have a infrastructure agreement for the property, and it has gone through Nate. We are simply finalizing the highway superintendent having the full clarity on how the water infrastructure is going to be installed. So we would like to, but we know the property owner and needs to move forward. And we're ready to move forward with the language. So I'm going to be making a motion on a resolution, and then we can have discussion. But I'm going to move that resolved that Ulysses Town Board approves the town supervisor to sign the infrastructure agreement for 1009 Honeybee Lane with Scott Stewart, Highway Superintendent, approving the final design of the water main infrastructure addition in Exhibit A. I will write this down for you, so you don't have to. But that was the, basically Scott just needs to sign off on the final portion of the infrastructure agreement related to water, but the contract itself, Nate, our attorney, is satisfied with.
And the owner is taking on all the costs of this?
Yes. And then we will, after the installation is done for the water side, we will be responsible for everything. We will take responsibility for the new infrastructure. up until their water pit, as is common with all the other water pits, meter pits, that other property owners have. But the cost associated with this will be paid for by the property owner.
This is in which water district? Which water district?
This
Water
isn't, this
District
isn't
3.
three.
This is.
And this is the property owner. This is not in addition to the water district. They're entitled. They're in the water district already. So this is just an infrastructure agreement. We don't need to take any action to add them to the water district. Actually didn't get a second before we kept discussing. I'm sorry. Is there a second?
Second it.
Thank you. Any further questions? I can tell you that we're going to need to enter into, after we do this, the next step is for the town to enter into an infrastructure agreement directly with NYSEG. Because NYSEG has to run their stuff through it as well, and NYSEG is requiring having an infrastructure agreement with us, so that'll be the second phase. I'm sorry, an easement. I apologize. No, an easement. Thank you.
Or the step to set a pole, is it underground? It's all underground.
It's all underground.
And it's actually on the property.
Huh.
Where the pole is? The water is, no, it's a vault, underground vault. We actually have to drill underneath the road twice for both the water and the electric. The town can provide for us to go around the circle, cul-de-sac to the rear. Oh. Where's the water pit? What's that? Where's the water pit? Right on the Weeds property. But there's a fire hydrant. There's one house up that's on the opposite side of the circle, and then the same thing with the electric.
That's Curtis.
Both fault and water pit will both land on one side and the other.
Any further questions or discussions? Then all those in favor? Aye. Excellent, thank you. And then, item number, I don't even know what item we're on. It's currently 7ED, but it's probably C technically when we move stuff around. An email address policy. We've had some email address requests. Chris is not on anymore. Oh, no, Chris is still on, so I don't know if she is. Oh, that's us. Oh.
She told me to text her to leave it.
Well, I was just gonna say that I didn't want to speak without her being here, but I will. Is that it makes sense for records management for there to be and she's our records manager. It makes sense for her to have access for foilable requests related to committees and obviously staff and town board members. But we're recommending adding committee chairs as a standard place for someone to have an email associated with the town. So I'm going to just go over this quickly, that this would resolve that the town board approves the following email address policy. Email addresses will be provided by the town for all staff, town board members, and board/committee chairs to improve the town's ability to manage records retention. And town board members will be provided an email address by name, staff will be provided an email address by either position or name, and committee chairs will be provided an email address by committee name. And this will allow, so for instance, my email address is supervisor@, and so I can guarantee you I will not be the last supervisor of the town of Ulysses unless New York State really changes government. And so whoever follows me will be also the supervisor@. So there's continuity, and we literally just turn over accounts, the same account to the next person. And so that's why code is code@ and planner@. And so the idea is that there's consistency. So we can maintain records. So that was this policy was developed in hand with Carissa. So I will move this resolution.
Second.
Any further discussion or comment?
When will this happen?
Not tonight.
Well,
I would
I
imagine
mean, is it gonna be in conjunction with the IT work that advanced?
that would be my anticipation.
Okay.
Yeah. Michelle, does that sound accurate to you? Yeah.
Or if there is something that, I can imagine that there's gonna be something that pops up that somebody's gonna need it sooner, so we can get work before that.
we have the ability, for instance, if Michael, right, we just joined, we're gonna provide him with an email address. I would anticipate. So that might happen before, but that's the idea, is to move to this organized way of doing it. So, any other questions? Then I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Upcoming events, yeah.
When are we gonna have an advice of council session to talk about the,
we are. I'm gonna send out an email so that people can let us know availability. It didn't seem to make
talk
sense to
about
do
the
it.
very thing?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So I'll send out an email and we'll find a time that works for everybody. So look for something tomorrow for me. Then we have 2 regular scheduled town board meetings on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays, and then Memorial Day, the town offices will be closed. And I don't remember the exact date, but around this time is when Memorial Day is around when Scott and the Highway Department moved to 4 days a week. And they don't work on Fridays, and they work the longer days, but I don't know the exact date, so I just put it on there. That brings us to approval of minutes. We had minutes circulated from April 11th. I didn't have any alterations. Did anybody else have any alterations? If you have alterations, I'm gonna propose that we table the item till next meeting. But if you don't have them, we can pass them. Good? Yep. Can say a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
We do not have any budget modifications, so that brings us full circle back to privilege of the floor. There's nobody online? Is there anybody in person who would like to address us on any topic?
Just out of curiosity, both of the issues to the table with funding.
Mhm.
What process has to happen next to finalize things?
So Scott, the highway superintendent, had some questions that he's going to, I think, talk to you about, just making sure that he has a full understanding and you're in full agreement on where I think it's the water pit in particular, of where exactly it's going to be located. So I will put you two in connect. I mean, I know you're already in contact tomorrow, but I'm going to put you in contact tomorrow and to let you know that you basically, as soon as Scott signs off on it, the property owner can sign the agreement and provide the town a copy. I will sign it and we'll provide you with the countersigned copy. So then for the electric, it's my understanding that it's going to be a town agreement with NYSEG directly. So if you got.
Thing that has to do with the Wee family being involved as well.
Probably. I'm learning all sorts of things that frankly I would like to not know. I'm joking. Slightly. But we'll work through that. It's a weirdo, right? Love to know the designer of that one. So we'll work through that process with you for the next phase, but this at least gets us going and moving forward with that. Yeah.
In the next 3 months. So.
Well, we would be delighted to have a new residence in Ulysses occupied. Absolutely. Did you guys have any? Okay. Yes, Roxanne.
I'm wondering, I think a lot of people, all the people who are on board committees probably would like to understand the, how you're gonna define appointed and all, and so I'm not sure why that is anything that needs to be in an executive attorney session, and so I feel like that should be discussed in public, at least what the pros and cons are when you make the decision, so.
Well, for clarity, what advice of counsel is allows town board members to ask questions of
Right.
our attorney.
Well, but why
And-
can't that be in a public? Because people are gonna want to know this, I guess my question.
Well, because the advice of counsel happens, if the town board has questions, that we have the privilege to conduct those conversations with our attorney and ask frank questions, because I will personally say in public right now that I am frankly concerned, and I would go so far as to say disturbed that there's so much pushback about taking sexual harassment, civil rights, and harassment training, and ethics training, And the town has very good justification for legal protection. And I am concerned about issues that have happened in the town that quite frankly are not suitable from a personnel relation to discuss in public session. And I want to talk to the attorney about that with the rest of the board present. So I want to ask questions from our attorney that would not be legally allowed to be discussed in public without besmirching the name of specific individuals.
Well, that makes sense. It's just that it was said that you had to define earlier what was an appointed position. And so that, I didn't understand why that would be something that couldn't be discussed in there. That was my question. And I just do want to reflect, at least on my own comment and the ones that I listened to. I do not believe that the pushback was on not wanting to get sexual harassment training at all. It was the way that it was done, the fact that no committees were involved, the fact that engaged at all in a discussion ahead of time, the fact that it's extremely unclear who it applies to right now, and the fact that an extremely inappropriate, by all accounts of the people who spoke, inflammatory word, is used for violating it. Those were the things people were speaking about, and I think rightfully so. And most of the people who spoke, myself included, are very longtime volunteers in this town who have done a lot with our spare time. And so I think people just felt like we'd like to be heard and treated a little bit more respectfully when coming up with these things. I don't think anyone was opposed at all to taking that kind of training. And in fact, most of us already have to take it. So we're not opposed to it. So I just wanted to be clear on my understanding, my listening, and my personal experience, and the couple of people who talked to me about what the issues were.
And the town board was happy to hear everybody's comments, and I think we'll take them certainly under advisement.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there,
I was opposed to understanding sexual harassment and civil rights.
But there is an issue whether what you take at Cornell qualifies for what you would take here.
And that would be great if the board thought about that and looked at that, because.
we did. That's why there was a resolution before us. And the reason that we have been recommended that we require our training is for the same reason that Cornell requires Cornell people to take their training, which is the training. And I've had Cornell's training, and it is specific to the Cornell environment, and the scenarios that are discussed and used are very specific to being in an educational environment, as well they should be. But that doesn't mean that those are the same scenarios that are always you're going to run into in a town situation. So when in-person training happened last year, and I know Rich was in attendance for that. And Michael, I believe you zoomed in. I can't remember off the top of my head. The scenarios that were also discussed in that training were specific to the types of issues that we deal with in the town in a more of a town situation. It does not mean that the training from Cornell isn't valuable. It's a question of, can we verify that the training is comparable to what the training that would be provided by the town? And the ability for the town to have everybody take, and I think that it becomes very important to be able to legally understand the differentiation between an appointed official and someone who is simply just serving as a volunteer on a committee. There is a differentiation in law, and there can be a differentiation in responsibilities and expectations. I personally will stand that I think anybody who's a public official should absolutely have to take this training, because they have been imbued with a sense of power and purpose and independent agency within the town government. Whether you're serving on the planning board, who takes independent legal action, the BZA, who takes independent legal action, the town board, who takes independent legal action, or we have other public officials in the form of code officer, we have a zoning officer, we have a town historian. These are all individuals who are out engaging in legal activity on behalf of the town in an independent fashion, or on behalf of the board collectively. And I think all of those groups should absolutely take the training that the town provides, because in the event that the town ends up in a lawsuit and is challenged for creating a hostile work environment, or because someone sexually harassed somebody else, and these are not theoretical issues in any government or in any business, these happen, and we have to deal with them. The town has an affirmative defense in a lawsuit, and you can say, well, our insurance will just cover that lawsuit. Yeah, that insurance will cover that lawsuit. And then what happens, having used your insurance, what happens the next time you go out for insurance the next year? What happens to your rate?
It's way up.
It goes way up. So it means every year after that, for a period of time, the town taxpayers will end up paying a higher rate. If we can be affirmative in our expectations, and if we can do it in a reasonable way, and I am perfectly willing to say, hey, you know what, 30 days isn't enough, 60 days might be sufficient, 90 days might be sufficient, but at some point, it's going to be about 2 hours of training. I mean, and that's really what it's coming down to protect the town, to protect the town resources. And there would be ways to do it both remotely or in person. And so it's not because I disrespect the hard work of volunteers. I was a volunteer in the town before I was on the board. And
Well, I think the word misconduct is.
It is a little draconian.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think it's anything that you don't see other places too. We can talk about modifying. I think that's why we're tabling the vote. So
well, and I would frankly want to, we can have you can ask the attorney if you have questions about that specific word, because that was the word that legal counsel recommended. So ask legal counsel about the specificity of that word and how that word is parallel. I also can tell you, if I understand correctly, the town of Ithaca requires all of its people associated with the town of Ithaca in the same types of things. At least in regards to Bolton Point, and the officials who are coordinating, is that correct? My understanding about,
Bolton Point requires all of their commissioners who are completely volunteer from all municipalities to take the Bolton Point's sexual harassment through the town of Ithaca. And they all have jobs at Cornell or law firms or wherever else they work, schools. So it's not something that's specific that we're trying to.
No, I
Sorry.
understand. I think the word hit a chord in people. It was,
So you're concerned with the word.
yeah.
The word,
Let's find a different word.
that's easy.
That's
fix.
easy to fix.
I think these are all fixable.
Also a concern with just engaging, maybe hearing from the people that it's going to apply to, just out of respect and politeness. And engaging them so that maybe you make something better by hearing from people instead of just overlaying it on without any notice that it's being talked about at all. I mean, I think that was a reaction that came out of this. And my point was really about the absolute volunteer commitment. I don't disagree with anything you said, Cameron, about any of that training and the training being specific, and that makes complete sense. It's just there's no clarity on, you appoint every single person on every single advisory committee, and the wording used was appointed. So I feel like that should be clarified, and you're gonna get clarification on that, and that would be really helpful.
Well, everybody is appointed, so what's the question?
it's a question
it
of
apply to
whether or not
everyone?
somebody is a public official or not. And so the town, what I've discovered is that the town has gotten some murky territory on over who constitutes a public official. Because there are some committee members who have taken oaths of office and others who haven't. And there should be, frankly, there should be a clear process that if you're,
I thought we all did. Yeah, for everything.
not everybody on every committee has taken an oath of office.
You're supposed to, aren't you?
Well, actually, that turns you into a public official. Do you want to be a public official?
No, we were
Right.
just told we had to do that.
Right. Well, and see, so you're pointing out something that it was news to me when we had a constituent come in who said, oh, I'm here to take my oath in office for the B committee. And I was saying, what? Mary and I looked at each other like, you have to take an oath? I didn't know that. Because I had been on the planning board and I took an oath, but I'd never been on just a committee.
Yeah.
So, but then Liz was on youth commission and she never took an oath. So basically it kind of opened up.
Well, I guess you guys just need to get consistency. on
Right,
it.
because it
Take
turns
oaths.
out, from a legal perspective, it may be that taking an oath turns you into a public official, and I'm not sure everybody
Interesting.
wants to be a public official.
No.
So here's someone who affirmatively wants to step back from being a public official. I hear you tonight. I kind of feel the same way. I'm joking, sort of. But
you know, when you talk about training specific to towns, what do you think about Kate's Darfler's suggestion about using the county or the state training as equivalent?
well, I mean, I think we could certainly look in to see if it is an equivalent. I mean, we picked a remote option that we went through the training ourselves to see if it was as close to an equivalent as we could find. So I don't have any problem with us taking a training and effectively vetting it. So I don't know if that's going to save a whole lot of committee members a lot of time. They would have to take somebody's. And so I guess if you're working for the county, that would meet, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. We just were looking for equivalent trainings in asynchronous option or the live in person, because the sexual harassment in particular has to be by state law has to be an interactive training. So either you're clicking through and clearly demonstrating you're paying attention to the scenarios, or you're in an in-person one, and you do have to take a quiz.
You can take it as many times as you want.
But accredited, I think is what you're looking for.
Are they accredited and are
That's what the point is.
And are they appropriate? I think I did 6 hours of training in order to send emails to parents as an assistant coach. Nobody wants me coaching anything on a soccer team. 6 hours of training to make sure that I knew everything I needed to know about if any children are ever abused, what to do. And, so it's pretty standard in a lot of places, but that training was obviously very specific to the organization I was volunteering for. And I think the whole point is just making sure that the trainings that the town board identifies are appropriate trainings that mimic what the in-person training would do to the best of our ability. And it's that specificity that allows us to have an affirmative
My
defense.
question for the lawyer is, are we looking for accredited training? Because I've had exactly what you're saying. If I'm covered by a youth sports association, if it's national or what it might be, that insurance company is covering me,
Well,
right?
right. So I can tell you for this specific case, the insurance or the training that we're recommending that was outlaid in the resolution that was provided is actually through Mineral, which is provided to us by our insurance broker. So it's an insurance, or it's a training that's actually provided to us as a result of being with Tompkins Trust or Tompkins Community Bank or whatever their current name is. And so from that standpoint, it's, we could look and see who constitutes accredited. Typically, organizations specify what training they require. So you have to go take it at, Safe Sport or whatever I took, I can't remember, something like that. And, then it was good for a period of time after that, but I wasn't allowed to take whatever training I wanted. I was supposed to take this specific training, and this specific training was accredited by the organization or was approved by the organization.
So for example, are we seeing anybody on the D committee, which is like, what, 50 people now? Have to have
Only like
taken
12.
Training.
We're just gonna start, no, well, and I think that's important. If they're not, I think that if they're not
Building,
public officials, they shouldn't need to go through it
Right.
personally, but I want to understand
What goes on inside?
if from a legal standpoint, is the town still
Right.
protected? And I don't know the answer to that. And I didn't want to do it at tonight's meeting because we weren't gonna be able to get to it until now, but I do appreciate the public's feedback. And perhaps some of our liaisons could bring these issues to the committee.
Yeah. Well,
And
I
thank you very
didn't,
much for this conversation, for letting us participate in this. It's been.
Well, we're not as quite as draconian as, or what was the word? Was it authoritative?
there were
Thank you.
there were a few
Authoritarian.
adjectives.
There were a few thrown around.
Quite a few adjectives. Draconian's a good one.
It was a bit. But
Sledgehammer to hit a
where
line, yeah, right.
it was just part of it. But it was clearly. It's good to get.
On that note, I move to adjourn.
Second. I beat you, Mary. Haha, tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was.
That was from last meeting.
You know, it's.